I am certainly stoked today to have Jared and Jason on board. We're going to do a Fox and Hound training. You know, we brought on AVPros this year. It's been totally successful for us because there's so many killer products, and we've done segmented trainings, you know, whether we're talking about their whole entire line. But I'm really glad you guys have joined us. We really believe in the product. I love Jason and Jared to talk about their support to you guys nationwide, because, you know, this is a kind of a deal where MRI dealers are here, AllNet dealers are here, so we're all into this together. I'll let them talk about Fox and Hound, but just really quick before I pass it over, I'm going to put together the video today, as well as their slide deck, and link to your distributors as well. I'm going to send everybody an email later on tonight, so look for that from me. We do this every Wednesday and Friday, so check our event section on stuff that's coming up. I've got Google, I've got Parasound training coming up, and as well as a lot of Snap AV stuff that we do specifically for the Snap AV distributors, which is all of us. All right, guys, two of the coolest guys in the business, I can just tell. I mean, seriously. Jason's got a full studio there. He sounds great. He looks great. Jared, man, I look forward to your expertise.
I got my laptop.
Hey man, I'm just here to be the Bob Barker and the host of these things. Make it kind of fun. It is Friday. It's Friday. Hope you guys are all safe and sound out there. Let's get to work. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to turn it over to Jared and Jason. There you go, boys.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, we're excited to be on here. Thanks for putting this together. As I said, my name is Jared Kantak. I'm the VP of Sales here at AVPro. Yeah, let's make this fun, guys. This is going to be pretty informal. Any questions you have, please feel free to ask. I'm sure you have a question box, or just chime in. Jason's going to do some live hands-on demo. We got a switch set up, some displays, so we'll actually be able to do some tests live, and hopefully be able to see it. We've got a decent camera set up there. The point of this is ultimately to make sure you guys have the proper tools, to make sure that we're maximizing our time in the field, or I guess in this case, minimizing it, as well as in the shop, making sure that we reduce truck rolls and save time and money, and that we're equipped with the proper tools to do our job. So with that, we're going to go over the Fox and Hound today. It's going to be fairly straightforward. A lot of guys question where AVPro came from. We're lucky enough to be involved with a lot of the locals with Snap. Volutone most recently. It's gone very well, as Gary mentioned. But we started in 2011. I personally started with the company in 2013. At the time, we were just an online distributor, so we were doing AV over IP, HD base T. We did a lot of work with HDMI test tools because we were heavily involved in the ISF world, or the Imaging Science Foundation. I think your presentation cut out there, Jason.
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm going to bring it right back up.
No worries. So we're involved in, we still to this day, we teach classes on the ISF, or the Imaging Science Foundation, on video calibration. That's kind of how Jason and our company crossed paths and started working together, in fact. It's kind of how a lot of opportunities that we've had come across our table have come across is directly through the ISF. So in a nutshell, there was a need for a video generator about 5 years ago that did full 4K, 18 gig, HDCP 2.2, all flavors of HDR, and that product didn't exist. So Matt Murray, our CTO, my good friend, he went out to China. He's actually Jeff Murray's son, who some of you guys might be familiar with back in the Sancor days. Anyways, he went out to China, and we built the Meridio brand from the ground up. Got a really large PO, and that allowed us to physically merge with the manufacturer. We own our own factory in China. We've been leading with test tools, and of course, we've been doing connectivity as well. But our roots are in test tools. That's what we're going to stick to today, and that's basically what we lead with. Lends us a lot of credibility to the company. Jason Dustal, he'll be doing a bulk of the presentation here. He's been with us for what now?
July was 3 years, believe it or not. It's flying by. It's been a ton of fun so far.
I was going to say 5, but yeah.
Well, the last 6 months has felt like 5 years, so yeah.
Anyways, he was a trainer for Best Buy before with video calibration. He's been in the industry for well over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Still to this day, we just got done doing a class with Disney. We taught a bunch of Disney colorists how to calibrate, how to get up to speed. That was an interesting roundabout way of doing it, and a really good way of doing it actually was remotely. So we never done that with the COVID. Obviously, it has made us adapt in different ways. So exciting things coming on that too. So people don't have to travel, which has been a big objection on that. He's certified with HD base T. Some of you may or may not know that we're actually a contributing member to HDBaseT. We're greatly involved with getting the next version, the 18 gig chipset coming up. Jason's contributed a lot to that. That's what a lot of people don't recognize. He also got Dealer Scope 40 under 40 a couple years ago, which is quite impressive. That's
3 of us now for the company too. I always like to add that so far just in our company alone, Dealer Scope has I've gotten it, and then Matt, our CTO, got it last year, and Justine, our marketing manager, she got it this year. So we've got 3 employees now that have made this this really cool Dealer Scope 40 under 40 list. So we're super proud of that.
Absolutely. Can you expand on the CTA?
Yeah. So you guys who may be CTA or CDIA members, we have all these documents out there on all kinds of things, building audio systems, building video systems. And one of the things that we were tasked with 2 years ago was to build a document on how to deal with HDMI in general, troubleshooting and testing and all the different physical parameters of HDMI, all the protocol parameters of HDMI. And we ended up with this like 70-page long document for integrators to basically help you with any HDMI problem that you might have in the field. I started off contributing to that specific document and ended up being a co-chair by the end of it because I put so much time into it. So now that we're done with that document, we're going to move on to another one. We're going to start updating some old documents. So for those of you who are like CD members and CTA members, you might be familiar with some of these documents. And if you are members of those organizations, some of those documents are even free. So the one that we just finished, if you want to check it out, is CEB 28. Again, that's all about HDMI design, infrastructure, troubleshooting, and anything involving HDMI and having problems in the field. That document pretty much covers it.
Absolutely. So Jason's heavily involved. We like to get as heavily involved as possible in developing new solutions. Anybody who's followed us, we've been the first with 18 gig HDMI, 18 gig HDBaseT. There's a reason for that. It's because we have employees, engineers, people like Jason working for us who are really passionate about this. Me, myself, I've been with the company 7 years now. I was actually in banking before that. I'm the VP of sales. Taking more of the Pro AV route as of right now, but obviously still helping out where I can. Been in sales my whole life. HAA member of VIXA. Started golfing last year. Still working on it.
You're doing pretty good. Last time we played, you had some real good shots.
If 100 is good, then anyways. More of the product, enough about us here. This is not done by us. This is actually done by CEDIA. Just some facts here, and I think these can be greatly inflated as well, meaning that there could be a lot more. But 66% of installations involve HDMI components. I think that's pretty much a given. I think that's a little bit higher. 57% of installs that do have HDMI in them do require more time than installs without HDMI video distribution. I think a common theme of here is that HDMI is a 4-letter word for a reason. That'll come up. 50% almost return visits are more likely when HDMI components are involved. So that's another truck roll. Of course, that costs money. 83% of installers who have they've had to take steps to simplify installations that involve HDMI components. Hopefully that involves some sort of test tool. I know a lot of guys have some 1080p test tools out there, and I know Lona one was very popular. There's a few testers out there, but a lot of people have basically kind of come up with their own kind of roundabout way of troubleshooting things without having the proper tools there. So that's one thing we'll definitely touch on. And then over 82% of installers have had to actually physically take out HDMI components to make them work. Just remove it completely. HDMI is a good technology as far as, whenever you plug your Blu-ray player or your Xbox into your TV, how many times do you have issues? Hardly ever, because that's a point-to-point connection. So our job as integrators and people out there distributing video is to basically chop it up, distribute it here, distribute it there, change transmission methods, and so on. And that's why we run into a lot more HDMI problems than per se just the average Joe hooking up his new gaming system to his computer.
And Jared, that's the easy stuff, man. I mean, the stuff that we're talking about, especially with our distribution solutions, you might have some displays that are 1080, you might have some displays that are 4K, you might have some displays that do HDR or not do HDR, do Dolby Vision or not do Dolby Vision. So
Dolby Vision Lite.
Yeah, so it's a lot more than just plugging things in and it all just magically works. You might not get the right resolution or the right format to the right display. or maybe you have one TV in the kitchen that's still flashing for some reason. So yeah, when everything's the same brand and same model and you're the same format and same sources, that's a much easier installation. And that's really like a dream situation, but that's not what we see out in the field. And anyone who's out there doing installations knows that there's always multiple sources, tons of different formats, and TVs all over the house or all over the project that are different capabilities. So, you know, just being able to have some tools to troubleshoot this stuff and figure out why that one TV is flashing or why that one TV is not getting 4K, being able to troubleshoot that stuff in seconds is extremely valuable.
Absolutely. You know, really, guys, this comes down to just, you know, having the proper tools for the job. I use this analogy quite a bit. You know, I would never take my car to a mechanic that doesn't have a code reader. Period. I'm not going to do it. You know, he can assess the symptoms and, you know, it might be this or that. We like to call it plucking and chucking, so to speak. You know, let's take this out, put this in there, see if it works, type deal. You know, the reality is a lot of integrators are out there, and we don't have the you know, the proper tools to even read an EDID. We all know that EDID is a huge problem. Usually the number one, you know, problem component of video distribution. Well, a lot of times we don't even know what EDID we're starting with. So how are we supposed to decipher where in the chain of video distribution that we need to maybe replace something? Maybe we need to adjust something. We're taking the guesswork out of things. Is really the whole idea behind it. So, you know, why would you need the Fox and Hound, or why would you need a test tool in general? Well, we need to save time. Number one, time is money. It cuts your troubleshooting time by about 50%. It cuts our troubleshooting time on our tech support time by about 50% just by having these tools.
And so Jared, too, just to add, and anybody who's on this call before, if you've ever called tech support before and you've said something like, hey, I'm not getting signal to this TV, one of the first questions that our tech support team asks is, do you have test equipment? Because, man, the length of the conversation and the complexity of the conversation is significantly lower when the integrator has test tools and can just read out formats and read out some specs and figure out what's going on right away. Other than that, I mean, what else are you doing? You're just kind of scratching your head and you're going into menus of sources, and there's really no way to tell exactly what's coming down that HDMI cable without the analyzer. And there's definitely no way to tell what's going down this HDMI cable without a generator. We've even seen some devices out there that were not correct. There's a specific Blu-ray player that comes to mind from a couple of years ago where you would set the output to 444 for the chroma, for example, and no matter whether you set that to 444 or 422 or RGB or whatever, it still came out of the player 420. And without knowing that, without being able to read it with an analyzer, you know, the first thing you think is something's wrong with something in the system, and there was nothing physically broken. Luckily, a firmware update later that year fixed the problem, but having a reference generator that you know is correct down to the specific pixel, having those reference tools is another really important thing to have.
Yep. Can we go back to the previous slide just real quick? Unnecessary returns, guys. 91%, this was the last figure I heard, of the gear that we get back on RMAs is perfectly fine. We test it here. It works great. What does that mean? That means that we're good about, you know, taking care of our customers. If you say it's bad, we'll trust you. What it also means is that if you don't have the proper tools out there, that we're probably going to do a lot more truck rolls. So if we send you a product that we deemed bad or we think was bad out there in the field, and it was not the issue, you know, you have to go back to that job site, install it. If that wasn't the issue, we're still at square one. So having these tools will really reduce truck rolls, and I can't stress that enough. You know, one of the things that we like to say is, you know, you need to control the EDID, or the EDID is going to control you. It's important at every point in turn in your video distribution system that we have the EDID, the capability of managing that. Otherwise, it's going to run wild. EDID, just real quickly, it's a one-way communication. This is the number one problem with video distribution. It's a one-way communication from the display to the source. That's why when you connect your Xbox or your computer up to your TV, your cable box, it's going to work almost 100% of the time because it's a direct communication. There's nothing in there to reroute it or to change direction, so to speak. I like to think of it as kind of a game of telephone, where maybe you have a bunch of people who speak a bunch of different languages and different capabilities. you know, so they're trying to relay one message from the sender all the way to the recipient. And how often is that going to get back to the, you know, the source to send it the proper signal through all those different components? Because now this person can only talk to this person, or the switch can only talk to the receiver, or vice versa, depending on how many different repeater devices you have in the system. It further complicates things. So now we're giving you a basis of, now we can verify, you know, what the EDID is and follow it upstream and quickly identify, you know, where our components are at. We've heard this one a lot of times too. It gives yourself a leg to stand on when talking to other manufacturers. Or maybe you're looking at taking on a new HDMI video distribution line and you want to put it through the ringer. Now we have something to test it quickly. We can verify if it does or doesn't pass a certain signal, what it's doing with HDR, what it's doing with HDCP. You know, guys have mentioned before that, you know, hey, this is not my problem when dealing with other manufacturers. Something else is the problem. You can give yourself a leg to stand on and definitively say, no, sir, your product is not doing this or that, and here's how I know why. And odds are that manufacturer has the test tools as well. We have these in many manufacturers' hands. A lot of our competitors, in fact, own these tools. But again, just taking the guesswork out. So that's essentially why you want to do it. Save time, save money, give yourself a leg to stand on, and take the guesswork out of things, guys. What do you get with it? You're going to get the ability to test EDID. So not only verify, you know, what a display's EDID is, and track that up or downstream, but also the ability to emulate an EDID. We can actually physically take our analyzer, stick it into an HDMI input, and we can now suck that EDID right out of that display. So what that does for you is you're able to walk around that job site with that display in your pocket, and every component that you introduce that to is going to react the exact same way. Hugely powerful tests just in the EDID. The cable test, Jason will go over. We can now verify if we have any errors in our cable. Maybe our, you know, this cable works great at 4K 30, but we're having some problems at 4K 60. With HDMI 2.0 and 2.1, a lot of people are still unaware of this as well, as you know, the minimum recommended length is actually 2 meters. So before with 1080p, it was always use a shorter cable. Well, now we're getting into longer cables because of different requirements, different bandwidths. So you have a way to physically test that. Of course, just display setup, just verifying the TV is working. It's not the problem. There's some patterns built into it. We have the ability to do any resolution all the way up to full 4K 60, 444, or 18 gig. We have the ability to do HDCP testing. So on the generator, you can simply press a button to turn HDCP off altogether if you want to see how a system reacts. You can also test 1.4. That encompasses every previous version of that, as well as 2.2. 2.3 will be a firmware upgrade as well. So that's just it's kind of a piggybacking off of 2.2. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of HDCP 2.3, but that's around the corner. We do have HDR capabilities as well. So you have HDR10 and HLG, or hybrid log gamma, on there. So you have the ability to test systems reaction to HDR. And of course, it's portable and battery operated. What'd you say, Jason? I mean, in typical use, I mean, on a single charge, you could probably get 3-4 days of decent troubleshooting off a single charge.
If it depends, of course. You know, I've talked to integrators before who are at these really big complex jobs, and they end up using it like pretty much, you know, 8-10 hours a day, and it'll last them the whole day, no problem. But if you're using it for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time, it'll probably stay charged for several days, I'm sure. Well, I mean, put it this way, Jared. The last time I used this Fox Hound that I have here with me was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I plugged them in this morning to charge them up for the webinar today, and they've both still had like over half their battery left. So that might give you a little bit of
power saving features built in.
Yeah, it'll time out and stuff.
I mean,
it'll turn
straight
off.
Use, you're probably looking at a couple hours of straight use.
Yeah.
So here's what we'll kind of turn it over to Jason. This is how easy it is to use, guys. This is not a tool that requires a bunch of training by any means. A lot of it's really common sense. Super easy to use. So if we look on the left, the generator. The generator, in a broad stroke, is you're having the ability to emulate any source you want to be. So I can emulate any resolution I want. Here's all my 4K resolutions, all the way up to 4K 60, 1080p, 720. Here's my VISA formats. Here's my standard definition formats. Here's where I can turn HDCP on or off. and test that. This does have some audio confidence test tones built into it, so you can generate a 2-channel or multi-channel audio stream from this. You can change whatever color space you want to be in, and here's where you activate HDR. This auto button is, I think, the most powerful button on the generator. So if we think about, you know, a typical installation, I got everything hooked up, I think everything's good to go, but I have no video on this display. Well, now I can take the generator to the display. I can verify that the display works and to what capabilities. I'm sure a lot of you guys have come across this too. Not all HDMI ports are created equal. So we have the ability to test different HDMI ports and their capabilities and making sure that we're going into the best one. So now I verified that the TV works and to what capability. That's not the problem, but I can hit that auto button and that'll physically tell me the EDID. So now I have a starting point. I've captured the EDID that my display wants. So I can go upstream, you know, I can go into the balins, into the AVR, into the matrix switch, into the splitter, whatever your install is, I can go upstream, and to each HDMI input, I can now track that EDID. Okay, I go to the next component, great, it's the same EDID. That's not the problem. Let's go to the next testing point and just go in. So you can quickly verify that. EDID is the #1 problem. Now we know what EDID we're starting with, which is huge.
Hey, Jared.
Yep.
Just to add in too, we did, the way our tech support system works is, you know, a technician will call in, they have a problem, and we have a way of logging it and using hashtags and things. We have a way of keeping track of the reasons people are calling in. And the last time we ran some numbers on this, it was something like 83% of the phone calls that came into our tech support department were related to EDID.
Absolutely. And that's with any video distribution company.
Right.
Just EDID is the thing that we have to track.
Mm-hmm.
We know where it's starting, and now we can trace it. And instead of plucking and chucking this component, I've identified that it's this AVR that maybe we need to bypass. Maybe we need a new AVR. Maybe we just need an EDID minder, you know, a little fix-it product in there like the SC1 or, you know, even a simple splitter. So again, the ability to emulate any source you want with the generator, pretty self-explanatory. Again, you can turn HDCP on or off, any color space, any bit depth that you want. We can encode HDR on there. And then we've built some shortcut buttons in there as well. So these preset buttons, these A and B, if there's a common, you know, scenario, maybe you're working with, let's say 4K 30 with HDCP 2.2 and RGB. You can save that setup right here. So you can quickly, you can save 2 different presets. So you don't have to necessarily go through every button and make sure everything's changed. You can kind of shortcut buttons there to save your favorite settings. So that's just the A and B there. And then we have the analyzer on the other side, which is the exact opposite, guys. So this is going to emulate any HDMI sync device or display device. So it is a live 4K monitor, which is worth its weight in gold just having that. So it's a little battery powered monitor. You plug it into a computer, a cable box, whatever it may be. You're going to get a picture so you can see the physical video. But not only that, we're going to hit the info button right here. This is actually going to tell us everything that we need to know. So this will physically analyze the signal, tell us exactly what resolution we're running at, what kind of audio we have, what kind of video, if we have HDR, what flavor, if we have HDCP, what flavor. It'll physically analyze that signal for you. So great, I'm getting a picture, but is it the right one? With the push of a button, we can quickly identify that. So the live video monitor, the analyzer functionality of it, the cable test, which Jason will show next here, really self-explanatory. You just basically pick, you know, which resolution you want to test at. You know, full 4K, 4K 30, 1080p, and it'll go through and test all of those. I think we can even do a live demo on that.
Yep.
HDCP. So you see, there's a button on the analyzer as well. So this is so you can make it emulate a certain monitor, like maybe a HDCP 2.2 device. So that it'll only accept that. You have the ability to kind of do some settings with that. With the EDID select button, going back to the EDID, this is the most powerful functionality of the analyzer, guys, is we have the ability to emulate different monitors. So with this EDID select button, I think there's 6 different canned EDIDs in there. I can choose, I want to act like I'm a 4K 60 TV. I want to be a 4K 30 TV. I want to be a 1080p 3D 2-channel TV. You have the ability to plug that in, and then that's what information it'll present. So it'll act as your display. And if you want to troubleshoot systems that way, you definitely can. More importantly, there's 2 user EDIDs on here. So you can actually suck the EDID out of a display or a projector and store it onto this analyzer. So similar to the preset buttons on the generator, here they're labeled EDID copy. So now I can take that Samsung that's on the wall that's giving me problems, or Sony or whatever, not trying to throw any brand under the bus, just the name of a manufacturer. I can quickly emulate that display. So I can stick my analyzer, even though the analyzer is an HDMI input, I'm going to stick it into another HDMI input on the display, and I can physically save that information to this device. So now I'm walking around the job site with this analyzer in my pocket. It's just like I got that 55-inch panel in my pocket. Every component that I introduce that to is going to react the exact same way because I'm presenting the same information.
Hey, Jared.
Go ahead.
Just to add too, guys, I mean, think about jobs that you're working on where the rack is in a totally different room, or, you know, and the TVs are all over the house. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 story building or something that you're working in. You know, the fact that I can take the EDID from a 65-inch TV that's upstairs somewhere, pull it into the analyzer. Now I can go to the rack and I can start plugging outputs of sources and outputs of switches and whatnot into the analyzer to make sure that everything in that rack is going to play nice with that specific TV. So there's lots of benefits to this. And as Jared said, and I love the way he put this, because I say it the same way, it's like having that TV in your pocket with you, or that projector in your pocket with you as you walk around the rest of the project and test everything. We see this a lot.
Yep.
when we're dealing with bigger systems that have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different displays, and they're all different manufacturers. Things do tend to play a little bit nicer when manufacturers are all the same and everything's from this similar model year or something, at least within the last couple of years. But the second you start mixing brands and mixing different displays of different capabilities, that's where it really gets squirrely. So just being able to carry these things around with you and just be able to plug them in and test things and generate signals is super handy.
Definitely. Or even bringing it back to the shop, too.
Right. There you
There's
go.
a lot
Yeah.
of times where, you know, I haven't figured out the issue. I need to get out of this client's house. So now I can take it home or to the shop, and I can physically have that same gear there.
Mm-hmm.
The same information. Extremely valuable. The audio button, that's just basically where you can mute the test tone. So it does have a little speaker in there. So if you have the audio confidence test tone on the generator and the analyzer hooked up, you'll get it's a whining noise, essentially, just verifying that it's there. So you have the ability to mute that as well. Other than that, I know Jason's got some gear set up there. We have some slides here. Again, any questions, type them into the question box, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, cool. So guys, I'm in a brand new office here that we just opened in a brand new studio. So bear with me just a little bit with the lighting and the camera angles. I may have to change a couple things here to show you guys what we want to show you. But the first thing, the easiest thing that we'll show you is the cable test. And I've got a couple of cables here that are, a couple that I know are good, and one that is very questionable, to say the least. I've had this cable for about 4 or 5 years doing different demonstrations with, and sometimes it passes and sometimes it doesn't. But here's the point, you know, you might have a job coming up next week, and you know it's going to need 30, 40 HDMI cables, or even if it's 5 or 10 HDMI cables. I can test all the cables before I even go on site. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take each end of the HDMI cable. One end goes into the generator. The other end plugs into the analyzer. Now on the generator, I'm going to go ahead and power that up. And on the analyzer, there's a simple button called cable test. Right here, cable test. So I'm going to push the cable test button. And as Jared said, you can pick resolutions and whatnot. I want to test this cable for full 18 gig. So my first option here says 2160p at 18 gigs. So all I do is press OK. Now we're going to watch the analyzer, and there's a couple of parameters here that show us what's going on. First, you have the 5 volt, so that's going to tell us if there's actually electrons getting from one end to the other. Then we have the 3 data channels, data channel 0, 1, and 2. That should show 0 errors if the cable is passing a signal, and in this case it is. And we also have a DDC pass, so we know that CEC and HDCP and all the communication things are there. And then we have a hot plug detect at the very end as well. So right now, the 5 volts okay. Data channel 0, 1, and 2 shows 0 errors. Hot plug passes and DDC passes. So I know now that this cable is okay. Now it does have a big chunk taken out of it, and it happened to pass this time. But you could see how a stack of 30 HDMI cables in front of you, we want to make sure those cables are good before we even go to the job site. So doing this beforehand is really going to save you some time. We don't have any surprises on the job site. But also, if you have a cable that's buried in the wall,
can you do a full camera, Jason, when you go to the units? Is that possible? Or
what do you mean? Like do a
so instead of the presentation, I wonder if we can get a close up.
Oh, just show the camera full screen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
how about that?
Blow it up. That's better.
Is that better? Okay.
Or you can take it over.
Is that it? We got rid of the PowerPoint, right? Cool. All right, so yeah, so everything right now shows 5 volts okay, 0, 0, 0 on the 3 TMDS lines, the data channels, and then hot plug and DDC are all signaling okay. So again, this cable is ready to go. Now, if I wanted to test other resolutions and other formats, I certainly can. We can go cable test, and then instead of testing 18 gigs, I can go down a click to 2160p 24 frames per second, which is only 14 gigs, and I can test for that as well. So you can go through and you can test this cable for its full capabilities, starting from the lowest bandwidth and working your way up, or starting from the highest bandwidth and working your way down. Either way, we're going to figure out if this cable is good or not. Now, this is doing some easy cable testing before you go to the job site, but don't forget, if you're on the job site and you've got a cable buried in the wall, you don't know if that cable is good or not. Just have someone on one end and somebody on the other end, or you can run up and down the stairs and push that cable test button and see for yourself. There was a kind of a horror story out of a couple integrators were working on a job in Tampa recently, and they ran like a 50 or 75 foot passive HDMI cable, which did have directional arrows on it, and they could not get signal to that TV, could not figure out for the life of them why, and they hooked up the equipment and got fail. And it turns out that the cable was actually ran backwards. They had the arrows backwards. But if they hadn't seen the arrows, the only way they would have known that the cable was bad was just by testing it, just like we did with this old gnarled up cable right here. I've got a couple other ones here too, just to show you guys. We've got an AOC cable. So in other words, a HDMI cable that is embedded with fiber. So we can go nice long distances and get nice, high bandwidth through these things. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to hook up the source end of the cable is going to plug into the generator. The display end of the cable is going to plug into the analyzer, and we'll do the same thing. So regardless of the type of HDMI cable that you have, whether it's copper and passive or active or AOC or whatever, again, just simply run the cable test and make sure those cables are good to go before you put them in.
Peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. Easy, easy.
And the active optical cables, those are more so, cable's kind of a, where it is a cable, but it's more so a codec almost,
right.
They are active, so almost like an HD-based transmitter. That's why they're directional, because of the electronics in the heads.
Mm-hmm. So that's the cable test. It's super simple. You hook up the cable, you push your cable test button on the analyzer, pick what resolution, what format you want to test, and just wait for the test to run. And that's it. Super simple. Let's see what's next. Any questions so far, Jared? I don't see the Q&A box, so I'm not sure. Oh, I think you're muted, Jared.
Nothing on Q&A so far, you guys.
Nothing yet. Okay, cool. So guys, on this slide, if you wanted to maybe screenshot it or something or save it for later, this just sort of goes through each one of those lines on the generator and tells you exactly what to look for and exactly what those individual lines mean. We sort of talked about that before, so we don't have to spend a ton of time here. But again, just wait for it to do the test, and you'll know if the cable's good or not. Another thing you can do too for pre-installation is testing the distribution system. So let's kill the PowerPoint so you guys can see the screen bigger, and I'll kind of show you what I've got going on here. So here I have, I've got the generator and analyzer, of course. I also have a Meridio 6G generator, so we can do some test patterns from another source if we want. I've also got an Apple TV. I've also got a AVPro 8x8 matrix switch here as well. And then we also are using a Meridio test monitor as our little proofing monitor here as well. So if I wanted to, let's say, test the infrastructure of a system, I can take the input side plug that into my generator because now I'm emulating the source. So my generator is plugged into the input on the matrix switch. The output of the matrix switch is going to be plugged into the analyzer. So let me go ahead and do that here. And what can you guys see exactly? All right. So I've got generator into the matrix switch, analyzer coming out of the matrix switch. And it just synced right now, actually, for 1080p at least. So let's say this is a matrix switch that I'm not familiar with, and I don't know if it can do 18 gigs. I don't know if it can do HDR. I don't know if it can do 4K. So I can go to the generator now, and I can press and hold my 18 gig button, and that's going to max out the generator's full capabilities for 18 gigs. So it'll be, 4K resolution, 60 frames per second, HDR turned on, 444. It's going to have everything that's going to max out that 18 gig bandwidth. And then on the analyzer on the other side, once it syncs, I can see that it was 2160p. If I push the info button, I can see exactly what's coming through. So 2160p, 60 frames per second, 444 RGB, HDMI connection, of course, no HDCP. It's running at 8-bit for the color depth or for the bit depth. That puts us right at, 17.8 gigs. Yep, 17.8 gigs. And right now there's no HDR metadata coming through. So I can go back to the generator. I can turn on HDR, and we can start figuring out if this switch maybe is not capable of HDR or not. So now I can come back to the analyzer after I turn HDR on the generator, and now we can see that HDR metadata is present. So not only do I know what's going into the matrix switch, I also know what's coming out of it too. So if anything was missing here, I could go back to the matrix switch. Maybe it's an EDID in the matrix switch. Maybe we're not getting 4K on this end because it's a matrix switch that has a built-in scaler, and the scaler's turned on for that output. There's a lot of different reasons why
the matrix will pass it, but the TV won't because deep color's not on it.
Yeah, it could be that too. Yeah, maybe it's an LG and the deep color's off, or maybe it's a Sony TV and the standard format is still selected for that input. So there's a lot of different reasons, but here's the point, guys. Now I know what's going in, I know what's coming out, and anything in between is most likely what's causing the issue. So I could go to this matrix switch, I could mess with EDID, I could do a lot of different things to the switch to make sure that everything's getting through that it's supposed to get through. Now if you scale this up, maybe there's a matrix switch, maybe there's an extender, you could scale this up to a job that you guys probably do on a normal basis and test the entire infrastructure. As long as the generator is in place of the source and the analyzer is in place of the display, you can see everything that's coming through that pipeline. And imagine a big system, right? You might have a TV, you might have an extender, you might have a matrix switch, you might have an AVR, and then you might finally have the source. So you might have 4 or 5 things in the signal chain that could throw this all off for you. Now, if I did have 4 or 5 things in the signal chain and I was not getting 4K on this side, I can take the analyzer and start going to my individual sources. So right now what I could do is I could take the Apple TV. Let me zoom this out so you guys can see it. If I take the Apple TV right now, I unplug the HDMI cable from it, and I can plug the HDMI cable from the Apple TV straight into the analyzer, and I can see exactly what's coming out of the Apple TV. Maybe the Apple TV is set to SDR, which I know a lot of installers do, myself included. When I'm on a job site, to make sure the Apple TV is working correctly, the first thing I do is put it in SDR. So if the Apple TV is pushing out everything it's supposed to push out, we'll see it here on the analyzer. So this is great because pre-installation, I can test all my sources, make sure they're outputting correctly. I can test all my displays and read the EDIDs, and I can test all my infrastructure if I pair up the generator with the analyzer. So before you even climb on a ladder, before you even mount the first TV, you can test your infrastructure, test your wiring, and make sure that all that is good before you start unboxing things and really get into the dirt of it.
With the actual TV's information, so it's
right.
It's a real test with the same information. Can we steal an EDID? Do you have a display we can suck one out? Show them.
So I do have the little Meridio monitor here, which of course does have an EDID. So what I could do here is there's a button here that says activate EDID. And if I read the EDID of this display, this is our little Meridio test monitor. Let me fix this so you guys can see a little better. Pardon me for just a moment. So this little, gosh, there's some glare there. This little Meridio monitor is showing us a couple of things on the EDID. The manufacturer, the sync device type, which is going to be HDMI, of course. The preferred timing of this little monitor is 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second, but it is capable of HDR. So why do you guys think the EDID out of the box on this little monitor reads 1080p? Well, because it's safe and they know it'll work no matter what you feed it. It'll work at 1080p. And we see this a lot on televisions, projectors, and monitors. It'll come with a safe EDID out of the box. It's the job of the integrator or whoever's setting up the TV to go in and make sure the deep color is turned on, or the enhanced format is turned on, or UHD color is turned on, or you're in the right input. You know, it could be that too. So you can test all this stuff before you even do anything. What I like to do when we do classes, you know, a lot of classes that we do, we'll have sometimes 5, 6, 7 TVs in the class. So we'll open up one box, steal the EDID out of that TV, put it into the analyzer, and then as we're setting up all the wiring and all the HDMI cables and stuff to set the classroom up, you know, we're hooking up to the analyzer to make sure that everything's going to be happy with that, at least with that TV. And we can kind of just go from there. Now, if I want to steal the EDID out of here, I've got a A and B button here. I can press and hold either one. And now that little Meridio monitor's EDID is copied into this analyzer. So now I can walk around this analyzer, whether it's this little Meridio monitor or a Sony TV or whatever. Now I can walk around the entire project, entire job site with the analyzer. And at this point, that analyzer might as well be that little monitor or that 65-inch TV or that, you know, 300-pound projector. So again, very, very, very helpful for little handheld tools.
And we've simplified the EDID too. I don't know if anybody's ever seen an actual EDID. We have the ability to do that with the Meridio, but we put it in layman's terms. So it'll say, you know, LG, Panasonic,
right?
Preferred timing. Very, very straightforward.
And, you know, we wanted to do that on purpose, guys, because like if you read an actual EDID, it's all in hex code and it's 20 lines long. You know, it's crazy. And, you know, who writes that code and who writes those EDIDs? Well, humans do, and humans make mistakes. And we've seen sometimes in certain devices where the EDID's wrong. And you know, we bring it up to the manufacturer and they push out a firmware update and it's fixed.
Apple TV's never done that, right?
Which one? Apple TV? Oh
Yeah.
man. So yeah, you guys probably remember when the Apple TV 4K first came out, it was forcing everything to Dolby Vision 4K 60. And guess what happened if you couldn't, if you had a TV that wasn't Dolby Vision 4K 60? So for the first couple of weeks that the Apple TV 4K came out, it was like chaos in the field because nobody could get it to work right. And, you know, after the uproar, Apple pushed out a firmware update a week or two later, and now all the Apple TVs, you can actually select outputs and select resolutions and frame rate matching and dynamic range matching and all that kind of stuff. It's all in there now. But before it was like, you know, we had no idea. So, you know, back in those early days of Apple TV 4K, somebody would hook up the Apple TV and through their matrix switch and through other distribution and get no picture on the other end. And they take the analyzer and figure out that it's Dolby Vision 4K 60 or something. Like, well, no wonder, right? So then you go back to the source, this being the Apple TV, and figure out something to do with it. Now, in those early days on the Apple TV, there was nothing you could do about it until they pushed the firmware update. But again, this would have been like a giant, you know, as Jared said before, a pluck and chuck. I can already see it now. Integrators, you know, swapping out TVs and swapping out Apple TVs and swapping out cables and switches and extenders. And in fact, nothing is actually wrong with the system. It's just a weird setting in the source. But again, you've never been able to tell that without the tools. All right. Anything else there, Jared, or should we move on to the next?
I think that pretty much covers EDID.
Any
does
questions?
Anybody have any questions? Anything we want to hit on here? I know we're about 45 minutes into it. I know we didn't want to go over an hour, so I want to make sure we have enough room for questions. Anything out there, guys?
Yeah, we're clear right here, guys.
Clear? All right.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. I sort of explained what's going on in this slide here. You know, there's some integrators who, when they're troubleshooting, they like to start at the source and work their way up to the television. Some people like to start with the TV and work their way all the way back to the source. It doesn't really matter what order you do things in. I like to start at the TV myself and work my way back to the source, but that's just me. You know, and taking notes along the way, and, you know, what does the EDID of the display say? What does the EDID of the next thing in line say? What is the source set to for output, for resolution, for frame rate, and all those different things? So as long as you're doing this in kind of a systematic way and doing it in some sort of organized way, you know, you can do your troubleshooting in no time and a lot less headaches. Again, otherwise you're just swapping things out at random and crossing your fingers that something's going to work. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is something that has been plaguing integrators since the beginning of HDMI. And one of the reasons HDMI was invented in the first place was for copyright protection. And we know that as HDCP. And there's been a couple versions of HDCP throughout the years. And we've got another version coming soon with 2.3. Our stuff will all work with 2.3 after a firmware update, luckily. Luckily, it's not a hardware thing. So a couple things we can do here to test for HDCP. I want to run this generator through the matrix switch like I did before. So I've got the generator plugged into the matrix switch on an input, and I've got the analyzer now plugged into the matrix switch on an output. So if I take the generator and I just want to see if these cables and this switch can pass a signal, period, regardless of what version of HDCP. So if I take my generator and let's go ahead and push the HDCP button, and I can go HDCP off, 1.4 or 2.2. Right now I have it set to off. So if I set the HDCP to off and pull up a test pattern, if I get a test pattern on the analyzer on the other end, that means that signal is getting through. So that eliminates one thing. Okay, now we need to see if this matrix switch is capable of HDCP 1.4. We know it's getting signal. So if there's any problems at this point, it might be HDCP related. We pick HDCP 1.4. The analyzer flashes for a second because it does have to re-handshake. And as long as this switch can do HDCP 1.4, we should get a test pattern on the other end. And then we can rinse and repeat and do the exact same thing for HDCP 2.2. And eventually after a firmware update, we can do the exact same thing for HDCP 2.3. So there you can see it locked on. And I've got a no signal here. So I can go into my, okay, here's a real world problem, guys. I'm not getting a signal. So let's go into the info button and no signal at all, right? So I should be getting something here. What's going on? So let's do this. Let's go to the generator. Let's do something real simple like 1080p. I just switched the generator to 1080p. And let's turn the HDR off, just in case that could be causing an issue. And
hey,
I've got,
can you go full frame?
oh, yep, good call, thank you. So I've got the generator set to 1080p 60, and I've got the HDCP turned to 1.4. And check this out. Jared, you've seen this before. You see, guys, how it looks like static? Almost like old TV with no antenna hooked up to it, static? There's two dead giveaways that you have an HDCP problem in your system. Number one, you see static. And not like noise static, like what you'd see in a badly compressed, Blu-ray or streaming movie. Static like there's no signal, like no antennas hooked up to our old TVs. The other big dead indicator that there's an HDCP problem is that the picture's there, but it flashes every 2 seconds, in and out every 2 seconds. So in this case, guys, I have to go back to this matrix switch now and figure out why it's not passing HDCP 1.4. Maybe the matrix switch is behind on firmware. Who knows? Let's test it just for the heck of it at this point. Let's go HDCP on the generator. Let's change it to 2.2. The analyzer is going to resync, and maybe or maybe not, it picks up. We'll have to see. But the point is I'm testing, right? There we go, 1920 by 1080, 60, and I have signal. So for some reason, this matrix switch passes HDCP 2.2, no problem. It passes a signal if HDCP is turned off, but for some reason it's struggling with HDCP 1.4. Now, luckily, if you're installing a system and all the components are fairly new in the past couple of years, they're all going to be HDCP 2.2 at least anyway. But you might have one of those older AVRs or an older source or just something in the system that's a couple years old, and it can't do a certain version of HDCP, and that could be the thing, which is why we always stress, as soon as something comes out of the box or before you start installing and hooking things up, firmware update everything, because these kind of problems can be worked out with firmware. So now I need to make a mental note to myself to work on the switch a little bit more to see exactly why it's not passing HDCP 1.4. It's kind of odd. It should be. So, but again, you guys saw a real world example of what might happen in the field. So that actually worked out really well.
It could just be a setting on the analyzer too, where it's only set up to take 2.2.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could be a couple different things, but the point is, you know, now I at least know what it can and can't do. I can keep troubleshooting, keep investigating from there.
We're not guessing.
We're not guessing exactly. All right.
So overall, is there any other tests you guys want us to show here? HDCP, EDID is the big one, of course, cable test. Again, this is not rocket science. It's literally just going up and down your install and making sure each component's passing what they should.
Mm-hmm.
Or getting the information on what they're capable of, so you know what to send it.
And Jared too, you know, I'm talking here about, you know, I've got an Apple TV and I've got a matrix switch. I also have a set of extenders here as well. So, you know, maybe you run into a retrofit job where, you know, the customer had the job installed, you know, 5 years ago and all the infrastructure is already there, but they hired you to put in a new 4K HDR TV, or at this point, even a new 8K HDR TV and new sources to show all that, you know, great picture quality. But the infrastructure, you're not sure, you know, maybe it's older, maybe it's category cable and there's HD base T in there. You don't know if this can do, you don't know if this extender set can do 18 gigs and get HDR from one point to the next. So, you know, whereas before I had the generator and analyzer hooked up to the matrix switch, I could do the same thing here. I could take the generator, plug the generator into the transmitter of the HDMI extender. Then I can take the analyzer, unplug it from the matrix switch, and I'll plug the analyzer into the receiver. So I've got generator, sorry guys, there's a bunch of cables here. Generator into the transmitter and analyzer into the receiver. Now my HDMI out into the analyzer, great. So now I can do those same tests, guys. I can max this out on the generator to, I can press and hold the 18 gig button, the 4K button, and I can max out the generator for 18 gigs. And if this extender kit can pass 18 gigs, I should get a picture on the other end. So regardless of what's in between the source and the display, it could be an extender set, it could be a matrix switch, it could be an AVR, it could be all of the above. Test your infrastructure before you make promises to the client. Because the last thing you want to do now is tell the client, oh, sorry, this isn't going to work. Now we got to tear your house apart and rewire everything. So that's all. There was the HDCP static error that I told you about before. Make this mental note, guys. Static like that, or again, consistently every 2 seconds flashing picture. Those are dead giveaways that you have HDCP problems. Again, you can start with the source. Start with the display. Set your generator. Your generator could be plugged in directly to the display. Try HDCP 1.4. Try HDCP 2.2. See if the display can take both. If it can, work your way backwards. Plug the generator into an input on the AVR or into an input on the matrix switch. Same thing. Pump HDCP 2.2 through. Pump 1.4 through. See what's going on. And eventually one of the devices in the signal chain is not going to be able to do 2.2. You know, maybe something's older. Then you get the static or you get no picture, you get the flashing picture. Okay, boom, there. I just figured out this Blu-ray player or this old Apple TV or this old Roku can't do HDCP 2.2. Time to get rid of it. We talked a little bit about the EDID tools. I showed you how to copy EDID. Jared talked a lot about it. This is, again, like 80% of our tech support calls are related to EDID. It's super, super, super important. Jared, I think you said this before, if you're not managing EDID, EDID is managing you. Yep. And without an idea of what your EDID is coming from a display or any kind of repeater device, you're hosed. And you know, we see this all the time. I'll give you another example of another manufacturer. I just picked up a little Hisense, the H9G. It's kind of their flagship quantum dot TV. And we wanted to know how well it calibrated and how well it works with Dolby Vision and, you know, what the EDID says and stuff like that. So I went ahead and grabbed one, and it has a switch in it to change the HDMI format from standard to enhanced, much like a Sony. So if you read the EDID of the Hisense TV before you flip the switch, it comes out 4K 30. But as soon as you switch that Hisense TV over to enhanced format, now the EDID says 4K 60. So Jared used a great example before. where, you know, you put in a source that's 4K 60, but on the analyzer side of it, you realize that it's only 4K 30. You know, maybe it's because the EDID of the TV that you copied is wrong, or maybe it's because the source is set up incorrectly. Either way, I know where to start with my troubleshooting and setup. Okay, we talked a lot about the EDID. Jared, any questions while I'm going through here, these other slides? Nothing yet? I don't see anything yet. I did find the question box, by the way, and I don't see anything. We talked a little bit about this, about just basic troubleshooting, you know, hook up the generator in place of the source, hook up the analyzer in place of the display. I hope you guys could see the screen as I was doing a live demo here. If not, here's what the screen looks like, you know, real close up. One thing I do want to call out, just because I'm noticing it right now, and we have gotten this phone call before, the analyzer and the generator do come with a protective film over the screen, and we've gotten calls before. People say, hey, the screen's all scratched up. And I can tell in this picture here, it just caught my eye. So guys, if you have one of these sets and they're brand new, make sure to peel off the little screen protector, or leave it on, it's up to you. But again, generator in place of the source, analyzer in place of the display. I can set the generator to whatever output I want, whatever resolution I want. I can turn HDR off and on, I can turn HLG off and on, and we can check the other end on the analyzer screen to see exactly what's coming through. So we built this little troubleshooting guide. This is like a kind of you know, this is sort of what we'll call a normal system, what you guys are probably seeing in the field on a regular basis. You got, you know, 3-4 sources going through a matrix switch, output of the matrix switch, you know, your 2 TVs, maybe a bedroom TV and a living room TV. Those are quite far away, so you've got some extenders going on there. I wanted to build this little roadmap for you to kind of show you how I troubleshoot, and hopefully it'll help you as well. So the first thing I want to look at is the entire system. And let's say this is a brand new 4K HDR system. Just doing a little research or just knowing the products, you know, number one, make sure the entire system does what you want it to do, every single device. If you have a customer who's really adamant about Dolby Vision, let's make sure to not sell them a Samsung TV, you know, things like that. If the customer wants 4K HDR, and let's make sure our sources and cables and extenders and switches can all handle that. Now, if you run into a job where the stuff's already installed and you're just there to put in a new TV or troubleshoot, or maybe the previous installation company went out of business or something, so you're sort of coming into this blindly, this chart should help you a lot. So everywhere that you see a blue box is where you can put a generator to pump signal through. Everywhere you see a red box is where you can put an analyzer to see exactly what's coming out of the device before it. So step number one is make sure all the components in the system do what you want them to do, and make sure they're all updated on firmware. Number two, you could start at the beginning at the source, or you could start at the display, totally up to you. But if you want to start at the source, number two is check the source. I can hook up an analyzer here out of the source, and I can make sure the source is outputting what I need it to before it goes into a matrix switch, which could have a different EDID or have something, a scaler turned on or something in the matrix switch. So if I put the analyzer here and coming out of the source is 4K 60 with HDR, I can move on to the switch. Now I can take the analyzer and put it here after the switch, press play on my source, and as long as the analyzer says 4K 60 HDR here, then I know the matrix switch is doing its job. I also have a set of extenders. I could put the analyzer here, and now I'm testing the signal all the way from the source through the switch into the extender kit right before the TV. Again, if it says 4K 60, I know I'm good. If it doesn't say 4K 60, what does that mean? Probably something up with my extenders. Could be a wrong setting, could be a defect, who knows? Because I had 4K 60 here, I had 4K 60 here, I had 1080p here. So it's really easy to figure out what's going on in the system. So again, guys, if you treat this kind of like a systematic, you know, and do it in an organized way, and just think about what you're doing step by step, your troubleshooting goes from like, oh gosh, I got to go to the Smith's house again today and keep troubleshooting that one TV. It goes from that to like, okay, I got to swing by the Smith house today and troubleshoot that one TV. I'll meet you guys at the next job at 2 o'clock because I'm only going to be here for an hour. You know, you kind of have that confidence of being able to go into a job and fix it right away. You know, assuming there's nothing, you know, physically defective, like a, you know, a HDMI cable with a screw through it or something. But again, guys, you use the chart, and you know, you can kind of apply these methods to your system. Use your generator, use your analyzer, and just go through piece by piece and device by device, and eventually you will figure out the weak point in the system.
Absolutely.
Anything to add there, Jared? I think I got it all.
We went over most of the, you know, the main applications for it.
Right.
It's none of this is difficult at all.
Yeah.
It's literally just walking around and testing each component.
Yep.
making sure your job's as tight as it could be.
Yep. You want to troubleshoot your source? Great. Take your analyzer, hook it up to the source, pick Netflix or push play on the source and see if what you want to come out is coming out. You plug it in on your analyzer, hit the info button like we showed you before, boom, you know exactly what's coming out of that source.
So yeah, other than that, appreciate it, Gary, as far as putting this together, getting this in front of you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time.
Any questions, you guys can hit us up, or of course Gary as well.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Like I said, all of that stuff that they had on the slide deck, that'll be included in tonight's email. Great job. It's just so cool to see it in real world examples, live. And another thing, I know Volutone's got stock. So on my email tonight, I'll have links going back to this product through MRI, AllNet, and Custom Plus. I see DB, a bunch of your crew members on here. I'm not sure,
hey.
But if you need any help finding the product, just let me know. Look for the email back later on tonight. Hit me back on that, and we'll get you to the right place. So
yeah, I just want to say hi to those guys real quick. We just did some ISF training with those guys. So how you guys doing? I hope you're well.
Oh, cool. So you know DB and his crew? So
yeah, great team.
Are they up with AllNet or Custom Plus back east?
I'm not sure exactly who they buy from. That's a good question.
Okay. All right. It doesn't matter.
Sure,
We're all together on this. So.
DB let us know. Yeah, either way.
All right, guys. Rendering the video now, so you'll get to do this. Actually, over the weekend, pass it to your team if you want somebody to get, a little bit more, hooked up on this. It'll be right there for you guys. Jason, Jared, okay, go ahead.
Anything
DB says he's calibrating right now.
Yeah. Anything you guys need from me, my email box is always open. It's real simple, jason@avproglobal.com. Feel free to reach out anytime. My job is training and support. So I get this all the time. People, I don't want to bug you, but I have a question. You're not bugging me. It's my job. Feel free. Don't be shy.